Listening to podcast is no replacement for real training. While we attempt to provide accurate commentary, we hold no responsibility on how you use the information we provide. Get medical training. In the blink of an eye, everyday order can be replaced with once-in-a-lifetime chaos. Be prepared. This is the Civilian Medical Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Civilian Medical Podcast. We're on episode 80. We've been chatting for like 30 minutes before we hit record button, so this should be a good one. We've known each other. We were just talking about how long we've known each other. So Bobby, my co-host, and then we've got our good friend Logan Brooks from North Carolina. He's a local guy to me, but moved to North Carolina for a job several years back. But just wanted to bring Logan on and talk about, like, because I'm a big gun guy, but I'm not really a hunter. And so Logan is a big hunter. So we kind of talk about some things with hunting and survival and what you need in a first aid kit. And then we'll talk about Logan's company he just got started. So tell us a little about yourself, Logan.
Well, my name is Logan Brooks. I am the owner of a company called Swamp Marshall Archery, and primarily do arrow builds. We have some apparel and some swag, stuff like that on our website. And if you're local, I'll do some bow work for you. I can do restrings, sight setups, and also have TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and a YouTube channel. That YouTube channel, I'm going to do some deer hunts. I have all my camera equipment ready to go. I've got some exciting hunts planned this fall, and I'm going to try to turn it into like a hunting channel. I'm a veteran of the Air Force, kind of, sort of. I spent 11 years split between the Air Force Reserve and the Air National Guard. I was an aircraft mechanic first enlistment, and I was a munitions troop my second enlistment in the Air Guard. Got out in 2020. I've been a paramedic for 10 or 11 years, been an EMS for a total of 15. Dietrich actually was my basic EMT instructor, if that lets you know how old he actually is.
God.
Yeah.
But you had a great foundation. Like, that's kind of what, like, I put in the notes. Like, you had like, your EMT is your foundation. So, I mean, you're a critical care flight paramedic now, and like, at least you had a good foundation.
That's right. Yeah, I had a great foundation. You know, sometimes knowing what not to do is equally as important. So, no, I'm just kidding. That was a
medic for 10 or 11 years. At what point did you know you were a better medic than Dietrich?
Dang.
Oh man. I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna do that to him.
I used to joke around and said, you know, those who do and those who can't teach. But now I'm a training officer. I'm like, oh God, I really can't do it anymore. Like, I know what to do and I can tell the crews what to do, but God, I really can't. You don't want me starting Ivy on you anymore.
For sure. I've been in the education side for way too long as well, so I can't make.
I can't tell you what was kind of interesting was whenever I was over the medical special operations group, and then I did Dietrich's onboarding, like I did his selection. That was weird for me. But, you know, then I turned the reins over to him, which kind of leads me to the next part of my story. Let's see, I went at the EMT school in the fall of 2010. By spring of 2011, I was employed full-time with Pickens County EMS. So jumped right into 911 almost immediately. It's funny, I don't have some like super sexy story of like I wanted to save lives or anything. I was in the reserves because I wanted to go to college and become an officer in the military. And a friend of mine was like, "Hey, dude, if you get your EMT, you can get a part-time job and just kind of build your schedule around your class schedule." So I was thinking of beer money, and so that's why I went to EMT school. And then while I was in EMT school, I realized that I loved this job, and so never went to college, went to paramedic school instead. And here I am 15 years later. I stayed at Pickens for the majority of my career, made it to FTO, and I was also the commander of the medical special operations group. So, you know, SWAT medicine and the wilderness kind of technical rescue side. turned those reins over to Dietrich when I got my flight job here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I've been there ever since. Clinical base lead here at Airlink Vitalink. And I actually survived the crash back in February, been recovering from it. But yeah, that's kind of my EMS story in a nutshell. Still going strong with it.
Definitely one of
A
the
lot
things
to pack into 15 years.
yeah.
What's that?
But it's a lot to pack into 15 years of experience.
I'm gonna tell you, man, I've been super blessed with my career. Like I don't know if I just, I'd rather be lucky than good. And I feel like there was a lot of luck. God's blessed me tremendously throughout my career. You know, so in a short 15 years, I've done what a lot of people 15 years in still consider goals. So incredibly thankful.
Yeah.
I've had a great career.
One of the things you said before we started recording was that you feel like EMS is a calling. And I believe that too. Like I am passionate about pre-hospital medicine. And I do think it's a calling. I think a lot of people just get in for whatever reason, whatever drags them into EMS, but I think it's a calling. And to have good bedside manner, to be able to make decisions that will affect someone's lives, that has to be passion and a calling. I've said before that patients live or die based on the provider that walks through the door. You have a provider who's a crappy provider, terrible provider, that patient may die. I bring in someone who is an awesome field clinician provider, and that patient lives. So I definitely I thought when you said that, I was like, yeah, like I agree wholeheartedly that the EMS is a calling. So if anybody that's listening to get an EMS, like if you don't have good bedside manner, like that's most of our job is being nice. 10% of the calls are life-threatening, and you got to make good, quick clinical decisions. Other than that, just be nice to people, like treat people like human beings.
And I'm gonna tell you this and I really didn't learn this fully until I got into critical care medicine, but what saves more patients' lives is not the interventions we do, but it's advocating for that patient, being able to empathize with where they're at and being able to be that voice for that patient to get them the proper care that they need. That right there is what makes them a great medic. That separates a good medic from a great medic, in my opinion.
100%. Absolutely.
I think before we get into talking about the hunting and survival stuff, as we're recording this episode, we're a couple days after the Charlie Kirk shooting. I've done some stuff on Instagram and X and things like that, just talking about it from a medical side. So I just want to kind of like bring it up, and we can kind of just shotgun it real quick just for a few minutes, and then we'll get into the hunting side of it. But Charlie Kirk was shot. As of today, it looks like a 30-06 hunting rifle, 200 yards away. Looks like it hits him in the neck, which would have gotten the carotid artery. Lots of talk on like my YouTube channel about whether or not I got a spinal column or not. You guys can discuss that. You guys are experts too. But right from the civilian side, like I just want to talk about the treatment for that. I did a quick video on my YouTube channel about wound packing and keeping the hemostatic agents there to get all the bleeding stopped. But I mean, I feel like he probably lost a liter solid before he even hit the ground out of the chair. I mean, there was massive bleeding. And then talked about, pre-hospital blood is important. I doubt very seriously they had EMS on standby. I doubt very seriously that EMS had a cooler full of, packed red blood cells in the ambulance. I do know he was about 10 minutes from the trauma center. So looking for you guys' feedback on what you guys think about the patient care wise for this situation.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the bleeding is the highest priority in that situation. Combined with my philosophy would be that it would be IJ instead of he was hitting the internal jugular instead of the carotid, because the blood seemed to be darker and flowing down. Obviously, the video was not really clear on that, but that would be my guess. And so the two things that I would be concerned about, one is of course massive blood loss, and second is the suction created by that open vein is a massive air embolism risk going straight to the heart. So I would want to get it, take care of that bleeding, and also make sure that you're trying to seal off that hole. A neck wound is not a sucking chest wound, but it's pretty close if you have an open jugular vein. So I would be worried about getting that sealed off as well pretty quickly. What do you think, Logan?
Yeah, I agree with that. I was going to say I don't envy anybody that had to respond to that because where that shot was, that is a very difficult place to manage, even for a seasoned clinician.
Mhm.
Um, much less, as a civilian bystander that's trained. So I mean, my regardless of what they did or didn't do, my heart goes out to those first responders that had to manage that. But inside of 200 yards with a 30-06, like that's well within its effective range. I don't know what ammo he was using, if it was an expanding type or not. Those can certainly play a role into what vasculature was hit. I would say that there's probably a high likelihood of a central nervous system involvement, but
Mhm.
there's nothing you can do about that. Like penetrating trauma to the CNS, that's going to be what it's going to be, right? You know what I mean? But yeah, I agree with you, Bobby. Like trying to get that sealed off, that wound packed, and then try to get some sort of seal over the top of that to prevent an embolism, either to the heart if it was a jugular, or to the brain if it was carotid. That would be my first step, and then trying to get a hold of blood, whether it's at the trauma center. I think you said they were 10 minutes away, but if you're further than that, obviously your air resources are going to carry whole blood. Most of them now they do. So trying to get him to a mass transfusion facility is going to be paramount.
Yeah. So they transported him in the backseat of an SUV, which not ideal, to a level 3 trauma center. So I think if you have an idea of how far out EMS could be, that might not be the worst decision in the world. But in general, I think you want to go by EMS. EMS is going to generally get to the scene well before you can get someone to the hospital and be able to provide that care en route. So they went to a level 3 trauma center that was 7 to 8 minutes away, which I think is probably the right decision in this circumstance. Number one,
Right.
I mean, it was catastrophic injury. The closest level 1 trauma center was almost an hour away by ground, in Salt Lake City. So that would be, I think, a really long transport time to consider with anything like this. I mean, traumatic cardiac arrest, you're probably, you're not
No,
going to transport that long. So,
no.
I mean, I
Even
think in
level
an
three should
ideal
really
world, they
matter.
have an ambulance on standby, like you said, Dietrich, but it's tough to say what to do in that circumstance when you know you're that close to a hospital.
Well, the Shots Fired podcast has already come out and said that there was only 6 cops working that whole thing, so I highly doubt they had any sort of EMS on standby. I mean, I don't know. This is speculation, but yeah, just truly tragic and unfortunate.
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway for us and for the listeners is right training, right gear, like know how to stop bleeding, massive bleeding, and know how to seal a chest wound, and have the right equipment with you all the time.
Yep, that's correct. I agree with that.
Definitely. So now back to our original air episode. Bobby, so you've got some pretty good data on here about incidents that happen for deer hunters, things like that.
Yeah. So I did a little bit of, I like statistics, so I did a little bit of research before this. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, they say about 14.5 million people hunt in the U.S. every year, which is a massive number of people. It's really incredible. From that, about 1,000 firearm-related accidents, with about 100 of those being fatal. Also within that 14 million is about 3,000 to 4,000 tree stand incidents, which if you've ever used a tree stand, particularly a climbing one, probably doesn't surprise you very much.
Right.
But the rate, if you look at it from an overall perspective, it's a really safe sport. If you want to look at it in the context of other sports, out of 100,000 hunters, 38, which is, whenever we look at a rate of injury, we want to look at it from the same amount of people. So out of 100,000 people, you can expect 38 hunters to be injured during the year. But if you look at American football, out of 100,000 people, 5,000 of them are going to get injured during the year. And about 200 out of every 100,000 golfers get injured. And I'm kind of curious how many of those are, drunken golf cart escapades versus other types of injuries. But it's really, comparatively speaking, pretty safe. But I think, from my experience as a medic and as a hunter in the past, there are definitely a lot of pitfalls and a lot of preparation that needs to go into an expedition. So, Logan, talk to us a little bit from your experience. What do you do as far as like trip planning? If you're going out into the woods, what do you do? What do you pack? All of that.
Well, the first thing that I do hunt a lot by myself. Um, and most of it's local, but somebody who knows that area knows where I'm going. Whether it be my father-in-law, I hunt on with him a lot. So even if I'm not with him, he knows generally the areas I'm going to be in. My wife and I, we share each other's locations on our phone anyway, not because anything shady's going on, but we just like to do that because in case something happens, or even just me wondering like how long it's going to take for her to get home instead of texting her, I can just look up and see where she's at. But anyway, so stuff like that. Make sure somebody knows where you're at if you're going to be by yourself. If you're going somewhere that, let's say you're going out of state, you're going to a different area that you're not familiar with, one of the first things that I look for, and I found this out the hard way, is where's my medical attention at? Where's my closest hospital, even your closest urgent care? Because you never know, you might need stitches, you might roll an
Mhm.
ankle. Um, Give you a story that happened to me. I was gutting a deer and knife got hung up on a rib or something, and I popped it out, hit my hand, cut a tendon going across the top of my thumb, and also found out there's a small artery there and cut that artery. Now, luckily, I was with my dad and a retired Army Ranger, so I wasn't by myself. Now, this was pre EMS, pre medical training, anything. So we were able to control the bleeding with direct pressure from a t-shirt, but we had no idea where the hospital was. Like we only called EMS because we didn't know where to go. And so we met EMS and kind of found out we were close to a hospital. But now, if I'm going out of state or going to a new area, I'm just looking at where my closest medical facilities are. Because again, even if you get an injury that small laceration, but it's not like arterial or anything. I mean, you still may need to get some antibiotics. You still may need to get a tetanus shot, stitches, whatever. So just know where you're going to get medical attention from. Now, you might be going on a true expedition, and if that's the case, that might change the gear that I carry. So, medical equipment wise, I always have a cat tourniquet on me. Like it's in my hunting bag, it stays with me everywhere I go. That if you carry nothing else, at least carry a cat tourniquet. Now, in my vehicle, I have a trauma bag, a small one, and it probably has more stuff than the average person would normally carry. But I have hemostatic agent, chest seals. I have a SAM splint in that. And if I were going somewhere where I know I'm a long ways away from medical attention, I would probably carry all of that with me.
Mhm.
But just the key things are just make sure somebody knows where you're at. You have some sort of navigation, some sort of GPS location, and also know where your medical attention is coming from and where it's going to be, and also just making sure you have the right trauma equipment in case you cut yourself or roll an ankle, whatever, so you can get yourself out.
Yeah. So, Dietrich, you want to talk a little bit about what kits you carry that kind of meet those requirements that Logan's talking about?
Yeah, so we've got a couple different kits that would fit that requirement. Is our stop to bleed kits are going to be something that you could put into a BDU pocket, put into a backpack, so a fanny pack, whatever you're carrying hunting, that has a pressure bandage in it, has combat galls, has a cat tourniquet. You could even switch and put a soft tee in there with our stop to bleed kits, things like that. Like our overland kit is another one that would have a SAM splint in there. It has some water purifying tablets, some other things more. Like if you were going to be long term, or maybe need to think about that. So the overlanding is a little bigger kit. I would still attach to a backpack or like a side by side or something like that. But it has pressure bandages and stuff like that. So it has more of your meds, like for upset stomach, allergic reactions, and things like that. So I think Logan's spot on with having you got to be able to stop the bleeding. So having a tourniquet, pressure bandage, gauze, things like that is important. But then think about like the boo-boo type stuff, like the Tylenol, like the upset stomach, allergic reaction, bee stings, and some other little minor stuff there that you could keep. Not that keep that on you, but keep it in your truck, keep it in your side-by-side, your four-wheeler, something like that. So I think like our IROC kit as well is another one. comes in a Pelican case, so you could literally run over it, and that kit's going to hold up well for you.
Yeah, and I think back to what Logan was saying about thinking about your evacuation plan and where your closest hospital is. I was out bow hunting with my uncle, probably I think it was 2019 in Colorado, and we hiked in about 6 miles. We were walking along the top of this ridge, and it was a rough hike. There's a lot of brush, and we were about 6 miles in, and sitting down for lunch, I started thinking, if something happened to one of us, it would take a long time for us to get help. We had no cell phone reception, and I really hadn't put the thought in before going up there. But sitting up there 6 miles out, I put a lot of thought into it, started to plan it out, and subsequent days, I had a plan in mind based on where we were going. There was a cattle farm kind of in the area that we knew we could get to if we needed to, and just having that planned out ahead of time is so much better than sitting on the side of the mountain saying, "Oh crap, I didn't plan for this." So that's a great point. And then the one other thing, let's talk about weather considerations. Like, how do you plan for that, and what do you do to look into potential weather issues?
So down here in the southeast, on the coast, it stays hot for most of deer season, honestly. So honestly, dehydration and things like that, that is a very, very high concern. Also, heat related injuries. So to a point, that kind of makes it easy because you're not wearing a whole lot of clothing, but just making sure you have your nutrition's dialed in, making sure your honestly your fitness is dialed in. I'm not saying you need to be a triathlon athlete to go deer hunting, but can you walk a long ways without getting winded? Can you help your buddy out? Things like that. And also making sure you're carrying plenty of water. Make sure you're hydrating the night before. Make sure you've got plenty of water. Also, life straws, water purification tablets, those things that Dietrich mentioned. Those are also very smart to have, depending on where you're at. Now, if you're going to be colder, now one thing I do carry, I always carry is some means to start a fire. Because man, fire will save your life in more ways than one. It's a signal. I mean, there's even some science behind just starting a fire will help you mentally if you're in a hard spot. And also, obviously, to keep you warm, you can heat food up with it. You can purify water with fire. And so you don't really have to get super elaborate with it. One of the things I learned in a Field and Stream magazine years ago that it works like a charm is you can take an empty 20 gauge shot shell and an empty 12 gauge shot shell, put matches in it, get hot wax, put the two together, seal off the cap, and you've got waterproof matches. You can carry a flint striker. Those things are really small, fit on a keychain, things like that. I actually did run into a situation one time where we were duck hunting and it was super cold, and we're in one of those like little Pelican bass boat things, like the little plastic. It's like a pontoon style thing. Well, anyway, we capsized it because we were brilliant, and we actually broke ice when we hit the water. And I had chest waders on, which actually helped me out. My buddy did not. So he was soaked to the bone. It was about a mile walk. And I was like, look, dude, you're the one that's cold. Like, and we stripped him down to basically one layer. And we are like, do you want to walk to the truck or do you want to build a fire right here? Because I had the means to build a fire. And we opted to walk. So in that situation, you do have to kind of weigh out, like, do I need to hunker down, build a fire, get warm before I evac out, or is it close enough to where I can keep moving to keep that body heat up and I can get to my vehicle? And in that case, we were. But it's a situation like that where I would definitely, another thing you could do, especially if you were on like a backpack hunt or something like that, is use a vacuum sealer, get some fleece, and you can vacuum seal that up really, really tight. And should boat capsize, all your gear fall in the water or whatever, you still have a dry set of clothes. And also wearing things like wool. Wool is amazing. It'll thermoregulate you to whatever that outside temperature is. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but I have wool base layers that keep me warm when it's cold and keep me cool when it's warm. And those also maintain heat well when they're wet. So making sure you have the right material clothing as well helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I had one unfortunate incident in the very brief period of my time. I lived in Wisconsin for a year and a half, and but it worked out that was 2 hunting seasons. We got an early snow, and there was a river that froze over where we were hunting, and we were crossing back and forth over this river, bird hunting in I think December or January, and the river currents make the ice thickness very unreliable. And I was wearing a parka and warm clothes on the top, but I had jeans and long johns on the bottom, which, to your point, cotton does not insulate like wool.
Mm.
I went through the ice. I knew the river was shallow, so I wasn't super worried about drowning. Went through the ice and got soaked up to my waist. I did have somebody with me, and we did have a plan. So we had at least a little bit of foresight to do that. This was in 2000, so I was like 18 years old. And hiked out, but yeah, my jeans were frozen solid, couldn't get them off. And as soon as I got back to campus, the first thing I did was just walk straight into the shower with my jeans on, melted everything, and got warmed up. But there's a lot to be said for making sure that you are properly equipped and that you are ready for the weather that you're going to be encountering. What do you think? Is suddenly becoming Logan and I telling stories of things we've done wrong while hunting.
Yeah, I'm just here listening. This is great. Like, I'm learning what not to do when I'm planning a hunting trip. This is great.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, I'm taking notes over here. I'm like, all right, so I don't want to wear cotton. I gonna spend some money on some nice clothes, but yeah, like I went. I'm old now, so I have hypertension. Right after COVID, I got hypertension now, obviously, and I went to REI, and I spent I swear the roll like under stuff is like $200 for a pair of pants, but I was like, I will take that because I do not want to be cold. So that's my go-to now. I was like, I'm gonna wear the fleece line blue jeans, like have my wool stuff on because I get cold now. Like it'll be not everyone else is cold, and whatever the lisinoprils, the Valsartans got me freaking cold.
Yeah, that skinny thing doesn't help too much with that either.
No, I'm not as skinny as I used to either. Like I'm 180. Like I know I'm not the 200 like man weight, but I'm a solid 180. So
you're probably where you should be. No, I'm not where I should be. So
check out Midway USA. Their brand of wool clothing is pretty affordable. That's what I have. And like their base layers, I think you can get like their shirt and their pants for like $50-$60 a piece.
Okay.
So that's a really good way to get into wool without having to break the bank.
Definitely. Because we go like snowboarding and skiing up in North Carolina a good bit in the wintertime. So like I do not want to be cold. Like I'm like, I'll do whatever. I'll spend the money. Like I just don't want to be cold.
Dude, I wear wool under my flight suit in the winter. Like I'm a believer in wool now. Like that is the way to go. If I could find, which I'm sure they make it, I just haven't really looked. But if I could find one that was black, that was short sleeve, I'd probably even wear it in the summertime as well.
Yeah, I didn't really think about wool in the summertime, and maybe that's just me being naive or stupid. But I really haven't thought about like wearing wool to keep you actually cool on the other side of things.
It works. I don't know. I don't get the science behind it, but it works that way. I mean, because down here in the South, you know how it is. It can be 40 degrees in the morning and 80 by 1 o'clock, and during the fall. And I've noticed that when I wear my wool base layers, like I don't have to change out of them. I'm comfortable from the morning to the evening. Like it's truly amazing.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the common things that you can see while you're hunting, some of the risks, and how do you avoid or mitigate those circumstances. So I'll start with firearm safety, and what do you? Obviously, there's some pretty obvious things like don't point it somewhere where you don't intend to shoot. But do you have some other recommendations around firearm safety that you?
Getting
into hunting?
buy a set of binoculars. Do not use your rifle scope as binoculars. That is drives me crazy when people do that. You shouldn't point your firearm at anything you're not willing to put a hole in. Um, you know, so why people would use a rifle scope for binoculars is beyond me. So just, I mean, even if you bought a $200 pair of, you know, Vortex, they're low end, like just get you something that you don't have to pull your rifle scope up to look and see what's out there. Uh, the other thing is, I mean, it should be common sense, but it's clearly not. If you can't see the target, don't pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
If you see the
Absolutely.
bushes moving, it doesn't matter if you think it's a deer or it's not. Um, unless you can clearly identify your target and what's behind it, do not pull the trigger. Don't even put your gun on it. Just wait for it to present itself. And I've been bamboozled before by a human at the land that Clemson University owns. Their ROTC students do a lot of land navigation there, and it's a bow only public land. And heard something walking through the woods, and I thought it was, the biggest buck of my lifetime, and it was this girl that was doing land nav. Now, luckily, I was bow hunting, and it's not like I drew back or anything, but I could see in that moment it made sense how some people get shot.
Mm.
Not saying it's right, not saying, what I mean, it's excusable, but I've been in that situation where you think it's a deer and it's not, it's a human. So just be very cognizant of not pointing your gun at something unless you know it's something you want to kill. And if it's not, then don't point your gun at it. It's as simple as
Right.
that.
Mm.
Treat every gun as if it's loaded. I know that should be elementary, but a lot of hunting accidents happen because of that. Um, I typically don't walk in the woods with a loaded chamber, things like that, climbing in and out of trees. Um, just, hold off till you get situated and get seated before you put one in the pipe.
So I know you're also a big bow hunter. Uh,
Right.
Bow hunting comes with its own set of risks. Not the same
Absolutely.
necessarily as firearms in all circumstances, but talk a little bit about what are some specific risks for bow hunting.
Probably the biggest thing for bow hunting, and sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but wear a safety harness. That is probably, I can tell you from being a flight paramedic and really only going to high acuity instances, we fly a lot of people that fall out of tree stands, and we fly a lot of people who are in ATV accidents related to hunting. So really PPE in general. If you're riding a four-wheeler or riding a side by side or whatever, side by sides have seat belts, wear your seat belt, wear a helmet. Um, but when you're climbing in and out of a tree stand, there's no excuse for it now. Like they have these things called lifelines that are safety harness ropes that run from the top of the tree all the way to the bottom. So if you're hunting out of a lock on, you can clip in at the base of the tree and climb up. I actually saddle hunt now, which I really like. I think it's a safer way to hunt because you're always attached to the tree. You're never disconnected from the tree. So I think that's probably the safest way to bow hunt now is with a saddle. But if you're using a climber, using lock-ons, just have your safety harness on and use an actual safety harness. I have seen where somebody tied a rope around their waist and they died from traumatic asphyxia because
Mm.
they fell from their tree stand and that rope cinched up on their chest and they couldn't breathe. So also most tree stands now they send you a free um, or they should come with a free safety harness. So even if you just wear that, but you know, spend the money on a hunter safety system or the seat of the pants or something. I mean, it's 120, $150 that could save your life. And I have many friends who have fallen out of tree stands. I have a friend that fell this year in the lower part of South Carolina. Deer season has been open since August, and he fell. Now, luckily, he was not injured, but um, man, when you're fighting gravity, it's out of your hands, like whether you get injured or not. So make sure you're wearing your proper PPE, whether you're on an ATV or you're climbing in and out of a deer stand. I know it can be annoying, but it can save your life.
Yeah. I got to say, first, hunting in the low country of South Carolina in August sounds miserable.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the longest extrication from the woods that I ever did as a paramedic was a hunter who fell out of a tree stand and had a lumbar fracture, and he was paralyzed from the waist down.
Yep.
You know, no safety system, 15 feet up, and heard something coming. Stepped off his platform. It was not a saddle type stand, and took a fall, and we had to cart him for quite a ways out of the woods with a fractured spine. So I 100% agree with you on that. I would also add in, don't forget arrows are extremely sharp if they are properly broadheads ready for hunting. And then the one thing that I saw that surprised me, I never saw it again after that, was one person who was trying to do some target practice in their yard, and they grabbed the wrong arrows that were too short for their draw length, and put one through their wrist when it fell off the nock.
Ugh.
They were not my patient, but they walked into the ER of the non-trauma center that I was at the time, and that I'm sure was a very unpleasant recovery and procedure. So be just in general, know your equipment and be very cautious around the use of it.
Yeah. And then going back to the bow aspect of it, make sure you're taking proper care of your bow. Make sure you're waxing your string. Make sure you're changing your string out when you're supposed to. Typically higher end strings you can get 2 to 3 years out of. But if it's starting to fray, if it's starting to look rough, if all of a sudden 70 pounds just doesn't feel like 70 anymore, that means your string's starting to come apart on the inside. Get that taken care of. Don't leave your bow hanging up in your garage throughout the summer and let your limbs delaminate, because all those things can translate into injuries later on when you try to fire that bow.
Yeah.
So just make sure, if you are a bow hunter, even if you're using a crossbow, just make sure you're taking good care of your equipment, and don't wait until the week before season to get that stuff looked at too. That's another thing. All of my archery shop owners are high-fiving me right now, but
I think
you want to try to
for a couple dollars.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my biggest advice for that, is just take care of your equipment. And you're right, broadheads are super sharp and they will cut you. Ask me.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, they're like, hey, deer season opens in the morning. Can you fix my bow? Like, that's normal.
That is normal. My buddy that runs a bow shop right now, he's been working 6 days a week trying to get people's stuff turned around, because like the 2 weeks before deer season, everybody wants restrung. They want all these, things done to their bow. And yeah, you need to be doing that in the spring. You don't need to be doing that 2 weeks before deer season opens. Which honestly, and I might catch a little flack for this, but it really, if you're not picking your bow up until 2 weeks before deer season, I really question how ethical of a hunter you are, because shooting a bow is not like shooting a rifle. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of fine tuning, a lot of things. So you really need to be getting that thing out and shooting it several months before deer season if you really want to be an ethical deer hunter. But that's just my opinion. And I'm sure a lot of other people would agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. So moving on down our list, we have all of the other kind of slipping, falling injuries, using just general caution to avoid. And then, what would you say about thinking through some of those things, crossing streams, moving up and down along ledges?
Proper footwear. That is paramount.
No Crocs.
No Crocs. Well, I mean, here's the thing. It's also, you don't necessarily want, if you're going to Colorado on an elk hunt, you're not going to wear rubber boots either. You know what I mean? Like you're going to want to look at now there's a lot of hybrid, like hiking and hunting boots. I know Crispy is a big company that makes very comfortable boots for that. But even if you just got some regular hiking boots, going back to wool, making sure your socks are right. And you got something that's not going to blister your feet after the first mile. And just thinking through, like if you are going to somewhere that's more mountainous, like you might want to throw that Sam splint in your bag versus not taking it. Where I'm at down here in the southeast, like we really don't run into that a whole lot. Because everything's flat. But you go up to the where y'all are at, or what Dietrich's at in the upstate of South Carolina. I mean, yeah, the terrain is a lot different, and twisted ankles, blown out knees. I mean, all that stuff can happen.
Absolutely. And then you kind of alluded to it earlier when we were talking about hypothermia in the north, but also the risk of dehydration in the south.
Right.
So Dietrich and I have been on a electrolyte kick this summer, talking about it, I think, in every episode. Do you bring water with you, or do you also bring electrolytes or mix your water with electrolytes when you're hunting?
I typically will bring water with me, and I usually keep the liquid IV packets in my truck if I feel like I need it. I do think that's carrying electrolytes with you is very important. I think that's especially if you're hunting in the south where it stays pretty hot. I would actually say in this region, if you were to ask a 911 EMS provider what their most common injury is, it's going to be a heat injury from being lost. Because, like I said, everything down here looks the same. It's flat. It's easy to get turned around. The woods are super thick. And they run into a lot of lost hunters. And when they find them, they're super dehydrated. So making sure you have plenty of water, making sure you have those liquid IV packs or some sort of means of electrolytes is very important.
Yeah, we've been using EC Sports. They're actually a local company. They're in Travelers Rest. So their supplements and all that stuff are made in America and obviously made local. So we've been working with them and supporting them on there. And the electrolytes actually tastes really good. So you can get it 500 milligrams or 1,000 milligram sodium packs. And if you do the math, like it's actually cheaper to buy their container of that than is like the little packets of liquid IV. So it has good flavor too. So there we go.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
It comes with 50 servings, so it works out to like 60 cents per serving, whereas like your liquid IVs and the what's the other one, Element, are like $1.40 per packet.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out.
And if you use the code Dietrich15, you get 15% off on the website. So.
Oh, nice.
And we get credit for it. So
yeah, we get credit for it.
I also use their creatine and their whey protein. I mean, it's good stuff. Good flavors. I like it.
Yeah, I did the protein powder.
They do jujitsu, so I make them use the electrolytes as well.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to check those guys out.
Definitely. So like medical emergencies in the field, like what are you thinking about treatment wise? Like, are you going to try to treat in place, try to evacuate? Like, what's your thought process? Should you stay like in that location or try to evacuate in like as you move out of the field?
I think the answer to that is it depends. It depends on, do you need to be rescued or not? If the answer is you need to be rescued, then I think you need to stay put. If it's something where it's not like threatening, or maybe you don't, you are ambulatory, you do know that you're way out. Going back to that story I told about the duck hunting incident, we did have that conversation. Do we stay and warm up or do we just walk? And we decided to walk. And it's kind of hard to put a definite yes or no. I mean, it just kind of depends on the scenario. But the way I look at it is, if I have to be rescued by somebody, I'm going to stay put versus, if I can self-extricate and get myself to medical attention, then that's probably what I'll do. And where that comes from is a lot of with the survival training that we do flying. You always want to stay put. You don't want to try to wander off because you're going to make yourself more lost you're going to make yourself harder to find. Whereas if you just stay where you're at and let them come to you, you're probably statistically going to be found a lot faster.
Yeah. I think that's really important for people to know is that there's a lot of examples in search and rescue of where they find where the person was a day or a few hours ago, and then they have to keep tracking them because people get disoriented, especially when there's an emergency, and really struggle to find their way out effectively. And so what they usually end up doing is just leaving a trail for rescuers to follow.
Right.
So you had mentioned to us offline before that you had a story about a friend who blew out a knee while hunting. So first, we'd love to hear the story. Sorry for your friend. Hopefully they're doing well now. But also, like when you think about things like that, like a leg fracture, blowing out a knee, what are your thoughts if you're in the woods alone and you have something like that happen to you?
I would try to, if it were me, I would try to stabilize that knee the best that I could. Luckily, at least in this part of the world, there's a lot of sticks and a lot of stuff laying around you can use as a temporary splint, or if you're carrying something like a SAM splint, you can splint yourself. So yeah, that's probably what I would do. Now, the story of my friend, that's actually, there were two instances in that one hunt, and it was, in hindsight, hilarious. At the time, it was not funny at all. But it was opening day of rifle season, and I was hunting with a good friend of mine and his dad. And I shot a buck, and his dad shot a buck. Now, his dad is historically known to go way off the beaten path and also get lost very easily. We rag him about that constantly. And I'm sure y'all could say the same about me based on the Med War performance a few years ago. But anyway, so
We're still looking for that road.
Yeah, can't find it. But yeah, so my buddy's dad blew his knee out, and he had done it before. So for him in that moment, it wasn't that catastrophic. He tried to reset it. It didn't really reset. I think he did, after a couple tries, finally did get it to pop back into place, but it was still very sore and hurt a lot. But also it was hot, and so my buddy got dehydrated and became a heat casualty basically. And so here I am with two deer to drag out and two people who are, you know, one with a blown out knee and one that's puking everywhere and is overheating. So I found myself in a mini mass casualty situation with two black tags and two red tags. So, you know,
you evacuated the black tags first in this
yes,
yes, for sure. For sure. The black tags in this incident were were very important. So but so yeah, I think this is a long time ago, but my buddy's dad finally got his knee back into place, and he was able to help my buddy Corey get out, who's puking everywhere. And I was basically left with two deer to drag. And so yeah, that goes back into hydration. Also, at the time, I was in very good shape, which helped me out with having to get two deer out. So yeah, just trying to be in the peak physical fitness that you can be in, you know, for your age and disability or whatever is very important. But making sure your nutrition is dialed, making sure you're hydrated, those things are, that came into play in this situation. But yeah, luckily we didn't have to do anything crazy to splint my buddy's dad's knee because he was able to pop it back into place. But at the time, I was still in high school, so I had no medical training or anything. I was just going to take two sticks and tie it on either side of his leg and let him limp himself out.
Not a bad plan.
Yeah, me. That's all I had.
So if you went back to that day and you're, a hunter, you're untrained, what would you recommend for training for people who are hunters, either by themselves, with other people, day hunts, week hunts, backpack hunts, what is your recommendation for training?
Like and subscribe to the Skinny Medic YouTube channel.
Hey,
I mean, in all reality, I say that somewhat jokingly. I mean, but there's so much good information out on YouTube now, man. You can learn how to do anything on YouTube. Basic first aid is one of them. But if you can find some sort of basic first aid course near you, a wilderness first aid course, stop the bleed, any of that stuff is going to be massive. The more training you can get, the better.
yeah,
Do
absolutely.
you use any kind of apps or anything on your phone to help you?
That I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't have any apps on my phone, but
Besides a compass app or?
oh, you know what? I'll take that back. You can use, I'm sorry, anyway. You can use Onyx is a very good app for being able for land nav to be able to find your way in, find your way out. Hunt Stand is another one, and I believe Spartan Forge. Those are three that come to mind. They can actually trace your steps in and trace out. The maps, if I'm not mistaken, are pre-downloaded. So once you download the maps, you don't necessarily have to have service to continue to use them. So if you're going on a pretty sporty hunt, I would definitely use that. Or if you're going into an area that you've never been in before, I would definitely utilize those apps just in case something happens. You can find your way out, if nothing else, or find your way to the nearest cattle farm, like Bobby was talking about.
Yeah, I think you're the second person to mention Onyx recently here on the podcast for having maps, terrain maps, and being able to have them offline. So that sounds like a pretty good
It
option.
is. Yeah, and it's
you just can't use it in a medical wilderness adventure race. You have to old school that.
right.
And if you do it well, you get one of these medals. But
Yeah,
somebody one of us that has one.
You don't get caught doing it, so we can always cheat. But I've actually been looking at switching to a Garmin watch because I have the Apple Watch, but I've actually been looking at switching to a Garmin watch just because the technology is better on land nav, battery life, things like that. Because there's been plenty of times I've been doing a search and rescue and like my phone's starting to die and stuff like that, and I'm like, crap, like if phone's dead, watch is dying, like I just want to make sure that Candace can find me, somebody knows where I'm at. So I've actually been looking at switching to like the Garmin style watch just for like the land nav stuff.
Yeah, those are awesome.
So I just read a book called Perseverance. It was written by a paramedic firefighter from Canada, actually, and he did a 40-day, 1,000-mile canoe trip, or 1,000-kilometer canoe trip through Canada, and documented it. Really interesting, but he talks a lot about having the right sat phone, having the right GPS, and he talks a lot about planning. And I think the one thing that really jumped out at me that was interesting was he said, everybody kind of has an idea of where their level of competence is, but you should never accept a challenge in the wilderness that is at your 100% level of competence, because all of the circumstances are not going to be perfect for you. There's always going to be something that takes away from your ability to function at 100%, whether you're tired, whether you're cold, dehydrated, whether the weather is bad. So if you're thinking, hey, I can hike to that ridge, or I can slide down this slope, or I can, in my case, I can cross this frozen river in the winter. Never do things that are at what you anticipate to be around 100% of your capabilities, because that's where tragedies happen, because you're not fully taking into account all of the factors that might be in play.
Yeah,
I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, that sums up everything, I think.
Yeah, that's really sage advice.
Well, he survived it, so I guess it worked out for him. So
yeah.
Well,
yeah, I mean, if I were, or go ahead.
I just remind us about your company and like where they can find you out on social media, and we'll make sure we put all that stuff in there. That way, people can, if they're looking for you, they can find you.
Yeah, Swamp Marshall Archery. That's Marshall with one L. You can email me at swampmarshalarchery@gmail.com. You can find me, my store website is swampmarshalarchery.store. YouTube is Swamp Marshall, TikTok, Swamp Marshall, and then Swamp Marshall Actual is my Instagram handle. And I'll give you all that so you can, put that on, put that in text. But yeah, like and subscribe at least to my YouTube channel and my TikTok, because I post more on TikTok probably than anything. My Instagram is still more or less my personal channel. But YouTube, I got some exciting stuff coming up. I've got some deer hunts coming, posting a lot of archery tips. And yeah, if you need arrows built, hit me up. Or if you want a cool hat or t-shirt or whatever, I've got some pretty slick t-shirt designs that are on my website as well. So hit me up.
I'm excited to see your hunts like this fall, this winter. I'm excited to watch those videos. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Opening day is tomorrow, and so I'm going to be out there swinging from a tree in my saddle, and hopefully I can at least stick a doe on camera and break the ice on my my adventure into filming my deer hunts. So,
what camera system are you using?
Man, honestly, it's something I bought on Amazon Prime Day, so I don't even really know. But it's
I
just
wonder
like
how
a base.
I have like the meta glasses, and like I wonder like if you could do that, something like that, like have the meta glasses and like record, like you hit the record button, and then when you draw back, like you would record it. Like I just don't know. I'd be curious to see. Like I've done it at the shooting range. It's pretty nice.
So
I don't know.
I don't even know what brand it is. Probably something made in China, but you know what? If it works, it works. So
you should probably learn how to use your video equipment before you go out there to the.
Yeah, I mean,
just,
I know how to use it.
Reminder to everyone to you can skimp on your camera equipment and buy from China, but don't buy your tourniquets made in China.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
I'll upgrade at some point, but I just, I mean, I got some middle of the road camera just to get into it, and so yeah, balling on the budget over here. So
no, start recording. Hit the record button. I'm like, I've been on YouTube way early, and man, I've went through tons of different cameras. Finally, recently able to start being able to afford some nice stuff. But yeah, so just hit the record button. So, well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Anything else you want to add before we close out?
No, just thank y'all for having me, man. This has been a lot of fun. Enjoyed talking to you too. It's been a while since we both, or all three of us, have sat down and had a conversation. So this has been awesome for me.
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here, and good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see y'all, and everybody that's listening. If you're a deer hunter, just be safe out there. You know, you never know.
Awesome.
Find us and subscribe at civmedical.com.